Oh, sorry, didn't see you guys there. Hi, I am Brett, aka the Connecticut Gamer, and today I'd like to do an in-depth review of one of my favorite line of handheld systems ever, the Game Boy Advance line. Let's get into it. So now to start off, let's talk about my Game Boy Advance. It's Game Boy Advance SP. This one is an NES edition, so it came out in 2004 in commemoration with the NES series of games. It's like an NES on the outside, and then on the inside, it's like an NES controller, which is really cool. And I've also previously owned a regular Game Boy Advance. It was clear, and I actually gave it to my cousin Owen because he had wanted a handheld system to play, so gave him that with some games as a Christmas present last year. And so I have quite a few games. I was playing one of my favorite games for it, Metroid Zero Mission, which I love the game. It's a really fun game. It's a retelling of the original Metroid game. It's really fun. GBA video cart, which is pretty cool. And then the final highlight of my collection, so to speak, is I have Pokemon Sapphire. And that is a really fun game too. However, with all that being said, I feel like we should get into the console differences between the three. So in 2001, when Nintendo launched the Game Boy Advance, it was the original model. So it was not clamshell like the Game Boy Advance SP. It didn't have a lit screen. And it looked like this. So then, once they had done that, they had the system that you see here, the Game Boy Advance SP. And this was released in 2003. So the biggest thing was it was clamshell, so the screen wouldn't constantly be exposed, which is really nice. And then also lit screen, which is another huge advantage. Now this is the AGS 001, as you guys can see. So there was also the AGS 101, which had an even brighter screen, which is a nice feature, but I personally don't know that it's going to be worth it for everyone. Like, I get away just fine with my 001. Granted, I've never used a 101, so it really might be that big of a difference. I don't know. And then in 2005, they released the Game Boy Advance Micro, which was a really odd release because the DS was already out for a year, and they decided to release another Game Boy Advance. Now, it wasn't clamshell, but it was really small, really sleek, and interchangeable faceplates, and it looked like this. And so then, but the biggest issue with that is it could only play Game Boy Advance games. No Game Boy or Game Boy Color games could be played on it. So for that reason, I'd have to say that if you were to get one of the three, I'd get an Advance SP. However, if you're looking for just something to play Game Boy Advance games on, know that the DS and DS Lite can play all Game Boy Advance games. They can't play Game Boy, they can't play Game Boy Color games, so they can play Game Boy Advance games, and so that's really cool. And also, if you want to be able to play all Game Boy games, the regular Game Boy Advance is really cheap. You can get them for like 15, 20 bucks normally at yard sale, garage sale, whatever. Now that I've talked about that, I'd like to go over what I think is some of the advantages and disadvantages of each, which I've already sort of gone over. So with the original, it's the most comfortable of the three, honestly, which is a plus. It's the biggest of the three, which might be nice, it might not be, depends on who you are. But then the biggest downfall of it is there is no backlit screen. The SP is the only one of the three that's a clamshell, so it's a huge plus. It has a backlight, which is a plus, and it can play all Game Boy games from every generation. The Game Boy Micro, by far the best screen. Leagues better than the AGS 101 even. But it was really small, wasn't clamshell, and couldn't play Game Boy or Game Boy Color games, which is a big issue, at least for me, because as you can see, I do have some original Game Boy games and a Game Boy Color game too. Now, granted, I play them on a Super Game Boy normally, so it isn't that big of a deal if I had a micro, but it's still nice to be able to play them on the go if I want to. So now you might be thinking, okay, well, let's say I get a Game Boy Advance. What games do you recommend I get? Well, now, I personally love the Metroid Zero Mission game. I also love Metroid Fusion. But if you don't like Metroid games, they're not going to be your thing because they are standard Metroid games, so to speak. Also, I personally really like Pokemon Sapphire, which you could also get Ruby or Emerald. They're all basically the same game with minor differences. But if you didn't grow up playing Pokemon like I did, because I've had this game since I was 8, it's not going to be your thing. It's not. And I even know that for me, because I have Pokemon Sapphire, and then I have Sun on the 3DS, which I got when I was maybe 10. And I love both of them, and then I just recently got Crystal and Red for my 3DS on the eShop. They're okay, but I don't like neither of them nearly as much. And I think that's because I didn't grow up with the first 2 generations. Right here I have Mario Kart Super Circuit, which to some people they might not like. It's most similar to Super Mario Kart. So I think that says how in-depth it is. But for the Game Boy Advance, it's a really fun game. I don't play it that much, but I play it enough, you know. It is a fun game, though. But if you're into the older arcade-style games, so like let's say you're into Galaga and Dig Dug, let's say. Well, the Namco Museum is going to be a game for you. Because it is 5 old-school games. There's Miss Pac-Man, Galaga, Galaxian, Dig Dug, and then Pole Position. So those 5, but I was hoping it. So those 5 games, and those are all good, solid games. However, if you're getting original Game Boy Advance or Game Boy Advance SP, you have a whole world of original Game Boy games you can dig into. It's not obviously right off the bat. I feel like the Mario Land games, either 1 or 2, great games to pick up. So there's 2. Here's the first one. They're both amazing games. And I didn't pay that much for them. I want to say I paid like 20 for the second one. And I just got the first one really recently, and I paid like 12 for it, I want to say. Like, they're both decently cheap games. If you're into puzzle games, there's Dr. Mario and Tetris. I don't have Tetris, but I have Dr. Mario. And Dr. Mario is an amazing game. A really fun Game Boy game. And so then the final game I'd like to talk about, and it's more of a hidden gem, but it is still a really fun game nonetheless. So then the final game I'd like to talk about is Mole Mania. So I'm thinking, Mole Mania, I've never heard of that. And it is a relatively unknown game. But it was made in 1996 by Shigeru Miyamoto. So it was made by a very well-known Nintendo developer. He actually made Mario. And it pulls at your heartstrings a little bit, because where most games made by him, it's you have to save the princess. With this one, it's some guy kidnaps your wife and kids. So it definitely pulls at the heartstrings, but it's a very fun game. It's a kind of a puzzle game, kind of a platformer. and you can't attack, so you have to go underground to avoid enemies, and you have to go underground to clear stages, and it's a really fun game, believe it or not, and I definitely recommend picking it up if you have the means to play it. However, with all that being said, I believe that's just about going to wrap up my little talk about the Game Boy Advance line of systems. And so, if you guys would like to see me talk about any other systems, anything like that, please make sure to let me know down in the comments so I can. With that being said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.